Loading. And we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sassquad Trail Runners Facebook Live series, our first episode for 2021. I am joined here by my friend Cole Crosby. He's to my left, and we're going to give him a Squatchy introduction after we go over just a brief overview of what events we have going on for Sassquad trail running. Feels like it's been a long time since we've done this. It's been a couple weeks. Back in December was our last episode. So we're excited to get back out here with you. So tonight, again, we're going to be talking with Cole Crosby, hearing about his 197-mile run across New Jersey from High Point to Cape May. And so Sassquad land, what we have going on. So last weekend, we had our annual Frosty Fat Sass Trail Race at the South Mountain Reservation in West Orange, New Jersey. This year, the trail party looked a little bit different, but we were so glad that we did not have to cancel the event. We had a great turnout over the course of the 5 or 6 days that we had the course marked. So thank you so much for coming out to the trails. I was out there almost every day of the series, and I saw so many familiar faces. I met a lot of new runners, which was really encouraging. So if you ran or hiked this past weekend and you want your results to be included on Ultra Sign Up, please take care of that tonight, preferably yesterday, and then we can finalize the results by Monday on Ultra Sign Up. So we raised a total of $2,700 for the South Mountain Conservancy this year. This is our annual fundraising event for them. They are the nonprofit organization that maintains the trails at the South Mountain Reservation, where we have several events throughout the year. So that brings our 4-year total up to $11,700, which is a monster number. We're excited about it. We love supporting them, and we look forward to doing that each year. So up next is the Squatchy Onesie Fest 5K marathon on February 6th. Yes, it is a ridiculous name. It's at the Ramapo Valley County Reservation in Mahwah, New Jersey. So it is just like the name says, it's the Onesie Fest. So you're going to wear your favorite onesie, come out to the trails, and you're going to squatch a 5K marathon. We just always wanted to call a race that, so we're calling it a 5K marathon. It's a traditional 5K. So it's probably the wildest race in our series, I would say. So this year, again, it's going to look a little bit different, but we're so glad we don't have to cancel it. We're going to have waves of 20 runners and hikers at a time, just to stick within the New Jersey outdoor gathering limits right now with the current executive order. So we have waves starting at 10 a.m., 11:30 a.m., and then 1 p.m. So there's a couple of spots left for the 10 and 11:30, and then there's about half the spots left for 1 o'clock. So you can go to ultrasignup.com and register for that. In January, we saw over 50 runners head to the Delaware Water Gap for our newest series, the RunVenture series. So there's still 2 weeks left in January. If you haven't hopped on that train yet, you can still get in on the fun. So this series, we're going to a different park each month in New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania. And we are offering various course distances that are ranging from a 5K up to an ultra marathon. So we give you the detailed turn-by-turn description and the GPX file, and then you get out there on your own to complete the race. So in February, we're excited to share that we're heading over to the Wanacue area trail system that's around Ringwood, New Jersey, to hit up some of my personal favorite trails in the state. So these loops are going to include some really cool features. There's a castle ruins on one of the loops. There's some historic manors and even the New Jersey Botanical Gardens, which is pretty cool. So the distances for this are going to range again from 5K up to the longest one, which I'm still finalizing the course, but it's going to be about 36 miles, rugged, steep, gnarly, probably about 7,000 feet of gain in the 36 miles. So Cole, maybe, I don't know, you gonna be up for that one? No.
Nope, I'm on the IR. Still on the IR.
maybe a couple months.
I might do the onesie thing. The onesie 5K. I might.
Yes.
That sounds appealing to me. That might be on my radar.
That's more your speed right at the moment. So this series is also going to include the really well-known Stonetown Circular Loop. It's about 10 to 11 miles at Northern Green. Again, a gnarly course that has, well, depending on your GPS, anywhere from 28 to 3,200 feet of gain on that loop. So again, all that's on Ultra Sign Up. You can learn more about the rest of our events for 2021 on our website, which is sassquadtrailrunning.com. So that about wraps it up for our Squatchy updates. So now let's get to the reason that you are all here. Cole Crosby. I won't share too much because I want Cole to have the evening to share his story, but I'll give you a little bit of background. I met Cole this past December when he reached out to me about his big New Jersey FKT attempt. So I encouraged him to get plugged into our Sassquad Facebook group to get the word out about the FKT attempt and to connect with other runners. And I was so encouraged to hear on the phone the other day from Cole that he shared he was able to connect with a bunch of you guys through the Facebook group and even got to share some miles with you during the run. So I'm excited for him to share more about that. The 197-mile run took Cole 44 hours, 42 minutes, and 21 seconds, which the math comes down to a pace of 13 minutes and 36 seconds per mile, which is blistering, blistering for a 200-mile race. According to Strava, he burned almost 25,000 calories during the run. And one of the aspects of his run that I love the most is he raised over $4,600 for the Roadrunners Club of America. A little bit more background on Cole, and then we'll jump into our questions. He graduated from SUNY Cortland with a master's in management of recreation and leisure services. Shout out, yep, Rec and Leisure Studies. And he also has a bachelor's in anthropology from the University of Oklahoma, where he ran cross country. And I do want to give a shout out to his sponsors and partners. I got the list here. So it's a long list. We got Red Newt Racing, Mountain Peak Fitness, Nathan, 361 Degrees, Fit Socks, Boom Nutrition, Confluence Running, Janji, and Dion Snowshoes. Did I miss anybody?
And Koros too.
Koros. Listen, I'm a Koros lover too, so I'm sorry, Koros.
Love you, Dan Shore. Love you, Dan Shore.
Awesome. So Cole, thank you so much for coming on our Zoom tonight, our Facebook Live.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is awesome. You know, when you'd reach out, or when I'd reach out to you initially, you know, this was always a hope to be able to come on and get to share my story. And I'm happy that it ended up with a happy ending and not something in disaster. Though there was definitely a lot of obstacles along the way, which, I mean, for 200 miles, that's going to happen. So yeah, I look forward to diving into it.
Awesome. Well, why don't we start at the beginning? Where did this idea come about? I know a little bit of the backstory, but I'd love for you to share it with our listeners.
Yeah, so really it was around this time last year. I was getting ready for the World Snowshoe Running Championships being held in Japan. That took place February 14 of 2020. So I was in training for that, and I was kind of looking ahead in terms of my schedule. You know, I had my race schedule planned, and I'm like, I'd love to do something, you know, being kind of a New Jersey native. I left, went to school in Oklahoma, moved for grad school in upstate New York, and lived in upstate New York for about 6 years before moving back down to New Jersey. And after spending time kind of back in my home state, exploring new areas and whatnot, I wanted to kind of take on a personal challenge that was going to be kind of, you know, kind of something that I could have some New Jersey pride with. And, you know, you go to fkt.com, you see that people are running across states, and that's kind of where I kind of got that idea initially, and was like, I wonder if anyone's run across New Jersey. So I hit up Google. I did a Google search. I didn't really find much, but I found one thing. I found this documentary called Running the New Jersey 184. I clicked on it, watched it, and the rest was history. I was so inspired, so captivated, you know. It's an incredible story. Please watch the documentary. It's really, well, it's a really incredible work that was done in it, and it's a great story. You got Ryan Donnelly, Anthony Russo, and Connie Gardner kind of steals the show. You know, sorry, I'll spoil it. She's the one that actually finishes the whole entire run, starting from High Point all the way down to Cape May. She showed up as a pacer and ended up just sticking it out the whole way. And technically she was the one that had the record more or less before me. So, you know, I had watched the documentary and then started to reach out. I reached out to Anthony Russo, I reached out to Connie, and Maggie Gutierrez. She kind of jumped on board and was like, she kind of linked me up with Connie because, you know, they're pretty close. And that's when this kind of a little idea got thrown in the back of my mind of like, I'm going to do this thing. It's just a
Right.
matter of when, right?
Right.
And at that point, I initially was thinking, well, maybe the fall of 2020. And then, you know, after the World Snowshoe Championships, COVID hits. And it's kind of like, we're trying to figure out what's going on with the racing schedule. And I'm like, well, maybe I'll do this sooner than I thought, and I kept bouncing around ideas of when. I thought I was going to do it in the fall. And then I really just went with what my heart said, which was, you know, this idea was conceived like January 9th, 2020. You should do it around the exact same time. I have flexibility in my schedule to do it. You know, I like cold weather, so the cold weather was appealing to me. I don't want to do it in 100-degree heat. And then I also thought about, I wanted to go during a time when it wasn't so busy, like, because you're running on somewhat busy roads for a lot of it. And so I wanted to go at a time where I didn't have, you know, dealing with traffic was not going to be so much of a factor. And yeah, January 9th, 2021 turned out to be a pretty good choice.
Yeah. How was the weather for your 44 or so hours?
Well, to be completely blunt, when I first started, it was freaking cold. It was like
Yeah.
4 degrees. It was like 4 degrees up there, and the wind's blowing. I can't feel my hands. I got mitts on, and I'm like, oh my god, like I just need to go, right? And I had all this nervous energy beforehand. You know, it was really exciting. When I started the GoFundMe, you know, there was some. I think through the GoFundMe, there was publications that and news media outlets that reached out that wanted to kind of inquire about the story. And when they had published virtually like the day before the run, I was so taken back by all the excitement around it and didn't really anticipate any of that. And I was a nervous wreck. I mean, I couldn't sleep the night before, and yeah, I got up there and I was freezing my butt off, and I was like, I just got to go just to stay warm, right? And as soon as I went, it was like all that nervous energy kind of like went away. I'm like, I'm in the zone. And it was the craziest thing. I just started rattling off like 10, 11-minute miles. Like it was clockwork. Like I had not really done any specific pacing. Like I had not gone out to do a lot of 10, 11-minute miles, which was my kind of goal pace.
Right.
I didn't do it, but my body was just like, we're in the zone. We're doing this. Today is the magic day. You're going to get this done. And so it happened.
Is that like it's one of those days where everything kind of clicked? Is that the feeling that you had?
In many ways, yes. It was, I mean, there was definitely obstacles that came at a lot of different points, and there's other things that I had kind of dealt with, but like it was like playing chess. I made the right, like when I was getting boxed in, I made the right move at the right time. And I got to give props to the New Jersey community out there, because you guys really like were pivotal for helping me at pivotal points. Like if there wasn't someone pacing me at a certain juncture, like mentally I could have been derailed completely, and who knows. And then I had moments where I was like delirious. And if you know, there's a gentleman named Kurt who's got the awesome trail runner beard, love the
Oh
guy.
yeah.
I mean, if he wasn't running with me out in the Pine Barrens, I'd still be running around the Pine Barrens like now. Like
Wow.
because I was so sleep deprived, I was losing my mind.
Right.
And Kurt just kept me focused, kept me moving. And I mean, it allowed for me to kind of take the time to like nourish myself. And I got my whereabouts with about 15 miles to go, and was like, oh, I thought I was going to be done like 5 miles ago. I didn't realize I had all this extra to go. And then at that point, I just kind of rode the wave down, you know, down to the finish. But it was just, to sum it up, it was an epic run. It was unlike anything that I've ever encountered before in my life. And it was, I mean, we can say it totally badass. Like it was just so cool.
Totally. That's awesome. And I know that you shared that your your previous longest run before this was 86 miles. So
Yep.
what was your mindset? You know, how'd you feel mentally making the jump from 86 to basically 200? Were you confident, nervous? What were you thinking?
Um, it's really it's a really strange thing for me because I came into it very like I felt like assured. I felt at ease with myself. I felt like
Yeah.
I was ready for this. I felt like almost in a way that like all the running I had done my whole entire life from sixth grade to now like was all like just preparation for being able to push myself
Mm,
to that limit for that type of distance. And I came into it thinking, you know what, like distance is just a number. Like you as a human, you can push yourself beyond limits than you could ever imagine.
yeah.
And I had had glimpses of that in a lot of my other races I have done. And I just wanted to show that like, you know, whatever the outside noise and chatter is, like you can break those barriers. Like even the barriers you put on yourself, like don't do it. Like
Mm.
you can achieve way greater than you could ever imagine. As long as you just put in the work and believe in yourself, like amazing things can happen.
So that combined with maybe some gummy bears, is that the magic formula?
Oh yeah. So people, Black Forest, I love these gummy bears. So, you know, ultra runners, we love gummy bears. I'm telling you, the Haribo ones are good, but these Black Forest are not only like they're organic, they're good for you, more or less, but like these are like just the most delicious gummy bears ever. So like race directors out there, like you know, ultra runners out there, you see this, try these, please. These are you can get these in convenience stores, like, and if I would love Black Forest if you're watching this one day. If I ever got signed to a deal from Black Forest, I'd be the happiest man on the planet because I eat these things like you would not believe it. This is like one of my favorite foods.
I was just gonna
Anyway,
ask, I was gonna ask, is it a paid ad? Is this a paid advertisement right now?
no, not a paid ad at all. That's how much I love Black Forest gummy bears. They're so freaking good.
Man,
My
all
wife
right.
probably hates me. She's like, "You're going to the dentist again. You keep getting cavities because all you do is eat these dumb gummy bears."
All right, if you're listening to this and you have a connection to Black Forest, you know you got to give Cole the hookup here. So we'll give him your number and we'll make the connection. So we got to get this man a gummy sponsor. So personally, I love to hear all about the logistics and the planning that goes into this. So I would love for you to chat about your crew. I know your wife was your number
Yep.
one, and talk to us about like the planning that went involved and what it was like for your wife who was crewing you for the whole time.
Yeah. So it's like for this whole run, like in many ways, the stars align. Like the timing of things, like the people that reached out to help out, and like everything just like fell into place. And I look back on it, and I'm like, it would have been such a different thing if it was just how I thought about it originally. It was like maybe a few people were going to come out, like three people. My wife was like my master crew chief. Like she was the logistics mastermind. She was the one
Mm,
primarily driving the support vehicle. You know, she hardly slept at all. She slept maybe like an hour or two the whole
wow.
44 hours. Um, you know, she was also doing handling social media and like
Yeah.
you know, we used Strava Beacon, and Strava Beacon at one point stopped working, and it was this
Right.
whole like, and she was dropping pins for people, and it was just
Right.
like totally like the New Jersey Forrest Gump thing, like, where's Cole now? Oh my God, what happened? You know, and she took all of that on herself.
Mm,
And I mean, without her, like this thing definitely would not have happened, and would not have, um, you know, for me, it wouldn't have been as enjoyable of experiences as it was.
right.
Um, so I mean, she took on so much. So I mean, I can't thank her enough. And you know, my dad was there to help support. I mean, he's been a crew member for a long time, um, and he's just a goofy, funny guy. Um, and just his jokes and just you know him just being there, like I mean, he helped out a lot. Like there was sections where there was not a shoulder to the road, kind of near Hillsborough, and
Yeah.
he was behind me with flashers and stuff and whatnot, so that cars weren't going to come running right by me. I could stay on the road, and that was really crucial because at that point I was getting a little bit, you know, a little bit low in the calorie
Right.
level. And I didn't want to concentrate on having to like maneuver on and off the road a bunch. And you know, little things like that were just pivotal. And that was really the story of 200 miles was little things would come up and we would catch it right away, like something like that. Like my dad suggested doing that, and that was a huge move that really helped.
Mm.
You know, probably one of the first big crazy things was also near Hillsborough. I got to run with Ryan Thorpe. Props.
Shout out Ryan.
Thank you, man. We had so much fun talking. It was a blast. He also took great photos, so thank you. And we were running, we're chatting. It's just like, time's going by like no one's business. I'm just loving life. And after he decides to go back, and I'm going into from Branchburg into kind of Hillsborough and into Montgomery area and that kind of stuff. I start to notice that, like, I look down at my leg, my right leg, and it's like swollen like a beach ball. And I'm like, oh, what's going on? And I'm feeling
Boy.
lightheaded a little bit. And I'm like, this is strange. Like, it just came on suddenly. Well, it turns out that the way my running tights were at the very bottom, like the cuff
Yeah.
was pushing up against my compression calf sleeve that had bunched up, and it was cutting off
Oh.
circulation to my foot.
Oh
So
boy.
I don't know how long that was going on for, but it could have been like maybe 6 miles, maybe at least.
Yeah.
And I took that moment to like unzipper the tights and then adjust the calf sleeve, and it was the craziest thing, just feeling the rush of blood come through. And
Oh my
and
goodness.
it was kind of like, oh, and the swelling started to go down a little bit. And I'm like, I remember telling my dad from the side of the car, and I'm like, that could have been the end of my race. Like that could have been,
Yeah.
I could have been done.
Right.
And I was fine after that. Like my leg felt fine, and I just kept going. And that was kind of again, that's just one example of like all these little things that would pop up, and it was like, oh, we just noticed it, like made the correction, and we were
Right.
back in business.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I mean, that's kind of a lot of the logistics part of it was, I mean, we had kind of a course laid out. The thing that was hard was that, part of me in doing this, I wanted to actually like create the fastest line point to point. That's why
Mm.
the name, the New Jersey point to point, came about. Was
Right.
there's been others that have run all of New Jersey, like from the boundary stones down to Cape May, and also like in the documentary, they run a different route than I do. They go out to
Okay.
Flemington and cut over, and that those routes aren't so direct. So I wanted to model off of that documentary and create the most direct route possible, the fastest line and point from point A to point B. And so not having that, like, that's why we drove the course to kind of recon. We noticed there's roads that were closed and whatnot. And I had a gentleman, John Beck, who reached out, who is
John
in
Beck.
the Bournetown area.
Uh-huh.
His running group, I always forget their name, but I got the picture here. The Uptown Gentle Friends. Props to them. They brought out the stops. They were incredible. They had like
That's awesome.
a whole like 8-station caravan set up for me. So that was clutch. And the Pineland Striders were also really big for me too.
Awesome.
Those two groups were like, they came out in full force, which was awesome.
That's so great.
So
Can I pause you here for 1 second?
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
saw a question, this just because the question is timely, and you started to answer it, but Robert Ivan wants to know, how long did it take you to map out the route, and did you start with Google Maps, because he saw you drove it beforehand to scope it out? So did you use Google Maps? Or did you use the Strava route builder?
No, so I mean, I looked at so you can use the route builder in Strava. The only thing is it's very time consuming to map it the right way. Like, it would have probably taken me a whole day, like 10 hours at least, to get it just right. The other thing with this course is that I wanted to do it all. My inspiration was that documentary, and I wanted, and how Anthony Russo and his whole crew and how they did it was off of Google Maps.
Okay.
With the walking directions.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to kind of do the same thing. Like, I thought that was kind of a fun part about it, and exploring that. So we did kind of drive and use Strava to map out like a driving route, more or less, because there's sections of trail that a car can't go on, of course. And so that helped. I did that more for our crew vehicle so that we had reference points to follow. I pretty much used Google Maps the whole time. Like, I had my phone with me, I had the Strava beacon on, and I also had the turn-by-turn directions of the route the whole time.
Wow. Okay. So no mistakes, or at least trying to avoid errors. Did you have any spots where you missed a turn or got turned around, or were you pretty much with that strategy, you were good?
There was only there's maybe like 2 spots. So one spot was off the Sussex Trail, kind of as you go past Newton. It said like to turn right off the trail. I'm like up on this overpass,
Okay.
and I start to run down the trail, and I look, and I'm like, I'm still up on this ridge. Like, how long does this go? I'm supposed to go down below. My wife's down below, and I'm yelling at her, and I'm like, I'm just gonna bushwhack
Oh
because
boy.
I'm not gonna spend 35 minutes trying to figure out like where this trail, where it ends right here, because it's telling me to get off the trail. So I
Right.
just bushwhacked down the ridge, and then connected right into the route. So that was one part. There was another part in the Pine Barrens that I knew was a little bit risque because it kind of like runs through not necessarily private property, but it like cuts through like weird like dirt road kind of stuff. That's like it's a road, but it's like I don't think any cars, like maybe ATVers, go through there.
Okay.
Um, and it was just too hard logistically to like follow that route, even though it was more direct. So I had to um, go a little bit longer, maybe like a mile longer, and turn right onto one of the main roads, and it still connects you back to where the route would eventually go. But I
Mm,
just felt like that was safer, and also because of cell surface and that stuff, like if anything would happen, like I didn't want to chance it, so
right.
we made that little detour.
So how much, if you had to split it into percentages of the route, was trail versus road? Could you put a number on it?
90, probably like 90 to 92% road, and then the
Okay.
rest was trail. And the trail, let's say anything that's not asphalt, right? Like blacktop.
Right.
So like, because there are sections like in Bedminster where you're running on these beautiful gravel roads, like surrounded by mansions and horse farms, which is like
Mm,
probably my favorite part of the whole entire thing. And then when you're running through a lot of the Pine Barrens, it's like this like sandy dirt kind of
yeah.
like paths and whatnot. Um, so there's a lot of that, and there are some different like rail trail kind of things that you hop onto, the Sussex Trail, which was actually really hard because it was there was a lot of thawing that had happened, and then it
Oh,
froze
yeah.
over, and so
Right.
I really had to like tiptoe through there because it was like water underneath me, solid ice. It was like dark, it was slippery. Like I'm wearing road shoes. Like
Yeah.
it was it was more challenging than I thought. Like I looked at the trail and was like, oh, this will be easy. This isn't anything, and that section was actually more challenging than I thought.
Okay. So it sounds like you talked about your favorite part, your favorite trail or section of the run. What was your least favorite?
Bedminster,
Yeah,
I'm telling
Bedminster.
you. Oh my
Did
God.
you
So
have a
it's
least favorite part?
least favorite, least favorite. I love the Pine Barrens, but that section was just like it beats you up so much. Like it was, I mean, you're virtually like 150, 160 miles in, and you just feel like you're
Mm.
going uphill forever. Like you're just it's just like nonstop uphill. It was like turn right in 3.5 miles, turn right. Well, that whole 3.5 miles, I'm just going uphill. And my wife has a video of me somewhere where I was just like, this is the Pine Barrens. It's supposed to be flat. What am I doing? Running up a mountain? Like there's mountains in the Pine Barrens? Like what are you talking about? What is this? And it's funny because driving the route, like I didn't put two and two together. I was like, yeah, it's not that bad. And then I started
Right.
running it, and I'm like, oh my God, this is like I'm used to running hills, but I'm like, just give my muscles a break. I need something different. Um, so that was one of my woes in that. But I mean, I think every section was to each its own. It
Right.
had value. I could also probably say 206 in the night over the nighttime
Mm.
um, was, from a mental standpoint, was by far the hardest because
Mm.
I was 24 hours in. I hardly had any sleep. I took a nap around 3 in the morning. It's cold. It's windy. I'm getting my face is getting chapped and stuff. My body's tightening up. I decided to whip out trekking poles. There's videos of me like just trekking pole along. I'm not.
Right.
I'm almost falling asleep. Like it was. I think in terms of like the whole culmination of hardship and struggle, that was probably the hardest and probably one of the biggest testing points in the whole run.
Right.
But coming into it, I knew that part was going to really challenge me. So I was kind of ready for it.
That's awesome. So let's talk real quick about gear, and then we'll get into a little bit more deeper questions. So walk us through your gear. We could go head to foot. What'd you use for illumination down to what were you, what'd you have on your feet?
Yeah, I mean, running New Jersey, definitely there's a disclaimer, like you got to be careful. There's it can be dangerous. I was lucky. I think I chose a time of year where it wasn't too bad. But you're running a lot in darkness, and props to Nathan. I was an employee of the company. It's a great company, great product. Their safety gear, the headlamps, the reflective strobe lights, and all that stuff. I mean, it made a huge difference. That definitely allowed for me to be safe, and I didn't have to worry about that too much. I knew that how cars were reacting when they would kind of see me was positive, and definitely all the people that were out there pacing me, they were also handlers. Like they
Right.
were. I'm not saying they were risking their lives for me, but they were doing what was necessary to make sure that I was safe.
Right.
And that's much appreciated. Like that allowed me to get to the finish line. So thank you. So yeah, I mean, that was one. I had this Mountain Hardwear jacket that I was wearing. That one of the challenges in doing this in the wintertime is thermoregulation. Like you got to put in the calories to make sure your body's at an optimal temperature. And I chose to wear in the nighttime sections a heavier kind of jacket that was lightweight but had the insulation, and it worked like a charm. I mean, like I was never like sweating heavy or anything like that. Like I kept a good temperature, and if I was able to do that, that meant that the calories I was putting in my body was not going into trying to keep me warm, but was fueling my body, fueling my forward progression. So I made that a point. I mean, all the sponsors you listed, I wore John G joggers towards the finish. Those things were super comfortable. They were great. John G makes great apparel. They're social business, so they help fund clean water projects, which is awesome. I've worked with Fit Socks. I've never gotten a real blister in a race until this race wearing Fit Socks. I will say that I didn't even notice I had blisters until I was getting worked on in Morgantown.
Okay.
And I got patched up. Like it was, I mean, again, that whole crew was incredible. Like, I mean, it was like a NASCAR pit stop. Like they changed my tires and got me like the oil change and everything, right? And off I went. And those blisters, like my feet, like I think after running 200 miles, they looked pretty damn good. Like
Awesome.
I mean, I can't say anything bad. Like they didn't bother me, and usually in a long race they probably would and could, So that was huge. In terms of shoes, I wore my 361. There's two shoes, Aspire, which is a really high cushion shoe. It's got a lot of bounce and protection. I wore that for my Delaware Canal FKT. I mean, the thing is, it's just I focus on protection or the first half of the run, and then I switched to my favorite shoe called the Phantom, which is a very snappy, poppy shoe. It's got a lot of spring and kind of it's more responsive, and that really helped because on tired legs, I needed something that was going to kind of like energize myself.
Right.
And also from a mental standpoint, it really like helped me switch gears. It was like, all right, these are my racing shoes. Like I'm ready to go.
Right.
So yeah, and then I just ate a lot of good food. Dr. Pepper, Black Forest gummy bears. I had someone went to New York City pretty much to give me cinnamon rolls. Like
Oh man.
that's the thing. That's the thing with New Jersey. You guys are amazing. Like the generosity for this run was incredible. Like people were like finding my wife in our Honda CR-V, and they were dropping off food and be like, "Hey, is Cole's on his way right here. I bought him some gummy bears. I bought him some olives." It was like the coolest thing. And my wife would just come by, and she, when I would see her in the next checkpoint, she'd be like, "Hey, so and so dropped off like this and this and this," and I'm like, what? I'm like, oh my god, this is so like surreal. This is so cool. Like, so yeah, thank you everybody again.
That's awesome. Yeah, New Jersey sometimes gets knocked on for a lot of things, but You're hearing it now from Cole. We've got diversity and beauty with, north to south, and then the hospitality. So the dirty Jersey isn't all that bad.
Yeah. I want to add too, like the course itself, like it's an incredible course. Like it's so diverse. It shows
Mm,
so much of New Jersey in ways that I don't think you would ever really get to experience. It's
yeah.
got it all. It's got sections where yes, is some traffic and it's a little bit dicey and hairy, which is a part of New Jersey. Like if you run in New Jersey, you got cars. Like you got to deal
Right.
with it. Um, but there's like so many beautiful natural areas. Like the Pine Barrens section was incredible, and like getting close to the Cape May, like you're in the beach towns, and it was just that was so cool with the Christmas lights, and
Mm,
you got the sections in Bedminster, which is like horse farms that you wouldn't like unless you live out there, you would never know that stuff even
right.
existed. And you got the big winding farm roads up by the Appalachian Ridge, kind of to start the
Mm,
whole runoff and everything. You got the beautiful night sky with the stars, and I mean, it really I think does an incredible job of really highlighting New Jersey. Case in point, um, in all of its wonder and all of its struggles. But that's the beauty of it. It
right.
really is. It really is. The perfect route, I think.
That's awesome. I mean, it sounds like the state of New Jersey needs to get you as a spokesperson with the travel bureau, I think. That's right.
Colin, I'll pick up.
All right, so I've got a couple questions, gonna dig a little deeper. What would you say, like if you had to say it in words, what motivates you? I mean, 197 miles, it's not a 5K that's gonna take, 30 minutes or less. What's at the heart of your motivation? What gets you out there? What kept you going over the course of those 40 plus hours?
Yeah. So I think part of it is kind of I like to think it's becoming it is my MO. It's becoming my MO. It's I have a website that I kind of created. It was a running blog originally, which still has a blog, but Cresting the Summit. Like I came up with
I wanted
I
to
thought of
ask you
that
about that.
I
Yeah.
thought about that term, and the reason being was when I first got into trail and ultra running, and I wanted to be a mountain runner initially. That was my very first foray into trail running. I'm like, I'm gonna run up Mount Washington and set records, and learned that was way harder than what meets the eye, and
Mm,
it humbled me. But anyway, Cresting the Summit is really just about um, putting in the work. Like running uphill, running up a mountain is not easy, but there's no better feeling than that moment when you start to come up over the crest and start to see like the sunrise and you're almost at that mountain peak. And it's kind of this metaphor for achieving goals, right? The
mm,
goal isn't to get to the top of the mountain, and the journey is the grinding of going up that mountain, and the hardship and the experiences that you go through. And it's really what you encounter, like it's worth it because that view that you get and that level of satisfaction and achievement of saying like that was hard and I did this. Like, I mean, I think for every trail and ultra runner out there, mountain runner, like I think that strikes a chord. It's like
sure.
that's why we love to do what we do, is because you can't get that same type of experience, I think, running a ton on roads and that kind of stuff. When you get to
Mm,
go off the trails and be in nature, it's like it's a much grander experience. So that was kind of my um, my motivation is I've always been I've been good, but I haven't been good enough.
mm,
And that's been a story of my whole life. I wasn't an all-state runner. I wasn't. I never became an All-American. It was just even lucky I was on a college team. Um, you know, every I've done well in USATF events. I've come really close. I've placed second, but I've never
mm,
been in that number one slot. And I've always been hungry to get there, and I've put in a lot of work and a lot of time, a lot of sacrifices, both myself and my family. And um, I just wanted to push myself and prove to myself that I could do something great and something that was like scary, but also something that felt eerily comfortable. Um,
mm,
and that's really what this run was. It was, um, uh, when I made a post saying the turning point, for me, I feel like this was a turning point in my running, in my frame of mind of how I approach things. And what it's done is it's really opened my eyes to to really not just how great this sport is, but like I think more of what my path could be. I've always wanted to be a positive person. I want to inspire people. I want to show that being a blue collar runner is awesome. Like we have a chip on our shoulder, and guess what? That's great. Like that is our MO. Like
Right.
that's okay. Like we don't have to be an All-American to find success. Like you put in the time, you hone your craft, like you can achieve great things.
Mm,
And I hope that I can be some small figment of proof of that. That's what I'm striving for. And ultimately, I would just want to be able to help try to lift people up together. Whatever your goals are, like feel free after this, like reach out to me. Like I want to hear your stories. Like that's what running is all about, is the story, right?
mm,
And I think this run of New Jersey, like it was an epic saga, and the story's not finished yet, but it was just the everything about it was just so captivating and so
mm,
moving and inspirational for me, from just everybody, like what I got to experience. Like I felt
right.
like it was an honor for me just to take part in this with other people that were
Mm,
strangers that became like friends. Like it's just that human element is probably one of the greatest gifts that I've ever been given.
mm,
um so from a real pure heart to heart point, I mean, I think when people say that running can be transformational, I know it has been in my life, and um, I hope it has been in yours. And yeah, let's just keep putting one foot in front of the other, right?
I love it. When is your book coming out?
Um, I still haven't done a blog post for the whole New Jersey run yet.
Yeah.
Um, we're gonna get into it. What I might look to have is maybe anyone that like help pace me, if they want to maybe contribute some excerpts to it,
Hmm.
because this story isn't just my story. This is a group story. It really is.
Right.
And that's what it needs to be. Like,
Mhm.
sure, I ran across the whole state of New Jersey, but um, I mean, without that support, it would have been super hard. Who knows? I don't know if I would have been able to do it.
Mm.
Um, and so maybe eventually, Dean Karnassus gave me a call. We can, maybe you can give me some advice on like how to write
That's
books. I
right.
mean, honestly, I'm really wordy, as you can tell. So like, I might need him to help me like get to the point.
Right. This is great stuff, Cole. I love it. I mean, you fit right in at Sassquad because that's what, we focus on, the community building, the people, it's more important than who finished first, second, and third in the events. Um, so I'm sure a lot of people are probably asking you this. We got to chat a little bit about it the other day, but what's next? It sounds like there was a before the 197 Cole and an after 197 Cole. So what are you looking forward to? What's the next step for Cole?
No limits. That's the phrase,
Yeah.
right? So does it mean that I'm gonna run like around the whole entire planet or the moon or something? Maybe not yet. That might take some more years of honing my craft to get to that level.
Yeah.
And really, I think um, I chose this lofty goal of trying to push myself to a pretty extreme distance, because I have goals like I really want to compete and do really well at the Spartathlon. That race has really captivated me. I like I do like road ultra marathons. I've done a lot of those kinds of things. Spartathlon is just kind of a gritty type of event,
Mm,
and I like that part of it. And um, there hasn't been a lot of, like, you haven't heard like great stories of like Americans just dominating at Spartathlon, and at least in recent years. And I'd really want to lift up some other athletes and bring a bring a like a wrecking ball kind of crew to like just sweep the podium or something. Like
awesome.
I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and I think that distance is something that will be something that could be in my wheelhouse. So that's something that's definitely on my radar. I'd like to run Badwater. I think that I'd like to do some desert races, multi-stage events first before I commit to something like Badwater, just so that
Mm,
I'm comfortable pushing in really extreme heat. Um, but that would be on the radar. I mean, ultimately, what I learned from this is that distance is just a number,
Mm,
and that if you're willing to push yourself to limits you've never imagined, you can go, your body will go as much as you want to go.
mm,
If it gives out, then finally it gives out, and you've gone as far as you can go. That's what I learned in this whole run, was like my body, like even if I was going slower, like it was still going. Like I'm like,
right.
okay, if I'm still maintaining 15 minutes a mile, like I'm gonna get to the finish line eventually. Um, and so, I'd like to, obviously I'd like to run Western States one day, but for me, I think my calling is I want to push myself in some of the most extreme environments in the world. I want to do Arctic events. I want to maybe do the Iditarod Trail. It's like a 300+ mile run. I mean, I like the cold. I think that there hasn't been athletes yet that have taken kind of that foot speed element, the endurance and the mental grit side of things, and really pushed the envelope in these types of events. The other
Mm,
thing is that these events are going to change with the climate change and all the other stuff going on.
right.
But it's like these are some incredible events in some of the most beautiful, harshest, but most pristine environments in the world. And I want to be an advocate for those environments, and I want to experience them and be able to tell a great story to others about these
Mm,
places and what I experienced there. And maybe that catches on for others to go and experience. So yeah, I think anything from 100 miles to 150 miles, I think it sounds pretty good for right now. And then I'd like to do some of these events where it's 300-mile, but you're hauling a sled with you and you're kind of like an Arctic survivalist. Like I think that stuff is just totally captivating and just crazy, but cool at the same time. So that's going to be me. Hopefully I can run the four deserts. That was something that was a huge inspiration for me when I got into trail running
mm.
in 2012. I want to run with a backpack and run in the Sahara and run in the uh, Atacama Desert in Chile, running the Gobi Desert, running Antarctica. Want to do that kind of stuff. So
That's awesome. What does Ashley think? Is she on board for crew for all these events?
um, we'll have to when they become more of, like, when I've committed and signed up, we'll have to figure out how we do it. But she's always been the best support system. She'll support me through anything. She knows, she'll be like, he's crazy, but I love him, and I know that he's always gonna, I'm not gonna try to put myself in a life altering situation,
Right.
where it's, if something's life or death, I'm gonna humbly pull the plug and say, I'll live to fight another day. So I think with some of those events, I think she respects my judgment and everything and all that.
Mm. That's awesome. I know you've given her really great credit and shout out, but again, I was just so blown away with how on top of the social media Ashley was, because I was following along, and like you said, when the Strava cut out, she was still providing updates. And I've said it before on this Zoom and the podcast. I think crewing is like the most selfless thing that you can do on this earth. And I mean,
100%, 100%.
yeah, it's unbelievable. And I've done both, and I think hands down crewing is way harder than the running. So great job, Ashley, and to your dad as well, everybody else who helped you. It does take an army to make stuff like this happen.
Yeah.
So we've got about 10 minutes left. So I do want to tell you guys who are watching and listening, start typing in your questions on the chat. I did see a couple pop up, so I'm going to scroll back to read them to you, Cole. There was one specific question about a point on your route. Okay, this was from Scott Caton. How did your route handle crossing over the Raritan River near the Parkway Bridge at exit 123? If you can remember. I'm
Oh
assuming
man,
that's a tricky spot.
I honestly, I don't remember that. Sorry. Apparently we were able to find a way to get over it, I guess. I don't know.
Well, he made
Raritan
it over,
River.
right?
Yeah, I mean, like what I can say is the diciest section was like going over the overpass by Quaker Bridge Mall, which is like, I virtually grew up like 5 miles away from Quaker Bridge Mall. And when
Okay.
we reconned the course, I was like, why does it have to be here? Like, I
Right.
knew this is like, I knew this was going to be dicey. And the worst part was, is I showed up during rush hour, and I knew based on my pacing that that was going to happen. It's going to be dark. And luckily we did a good job of like, Anthony Russo was with me on that. So he really helped out. And, you know, my wife, Ashley, and my dad were able to like kind of get in some side lanes with flashers to kind of help
Yeah.
us. But I mean, do it with extreme discretion, because that was probably the hairiest part of the whole thing. But the rest of it, honestly, I didn't really feel like it was that crazy or difficult or dangerous or anything like that. You know, the
Awesome.
route that we took into Cape May, for example, I took on Seashore Avenue, which is like, I took the more inland choice rather than taking the main beach section. And that was, I think, a really wise choice, because there was like no cars out there. I did have, thanks to Harry and Mike at Cape May Running Company, like they had a whole police escort for me for like 15 miles pretty much, leading
It's
into Cape May and
amazing.
at Cape May. So
Yeah.
like that helped, but it was also a smart route choice, because it was not, you know, it was not dangerous or anything like that.
Awesome. All right, here's a question from James Borden. Strava splits showed that you ran a couple of 7-minute miles around like mile 158. Is that right? Did you just casually throw in some 7-minute pacings in the run?
I'm so glad that you called on that. So okay, so that was the moment where my delirium, or where I started having symptoms of being delirious, pretty much like took hold. I was virtually delirious for like 2 or 3 hours.
Mm,
And you know, being sleep deprived, I'd only slept maybe like an hour and 20 minutes the whole entire time. um and uh and also being low in calories. I had taken too much salt as well, so I was dealing with a little bit of hypernatremia. So I was kind of combating that at the same time of dealing with my fuel sources and stuff. Um, and I also chugged an energy drink right before that stretch,
okay.
and I don't know, I just, some switch like clicked in my mind, and I just started running 7-minute miles. It was downhill, so it felt fast, and I just started doing it. And I just was like, in my mind, I started to play out the scenario that we had, because Kurt like knew the whole area, and I thought he found a shortcut or something, because I didn't really remember
Okay.
this section. And I virtually thought that I was only like 10 miles away from the finish. So I was like, this is like going to be the perfect story. I'm going to finish before it gets dark. Like that was my like ultimate goal. And I'm like, what
Right.
is happening? And lo and behold, of course, after a couple hours, I really come to, and I realized that that was all just like a figment of my imagination, and that I still had a long way to go. And at that point, I was like, oh crap, like, I got to sort out my goods here, and I got to like make sure I
Right.
bring it home. So yeah, I did split some 7-minute miles. They felt like I was running much faster. To be honest, I didn't look at my watch or anything. I was just like in the zone, and
Mm,
Kurt was running with me as fast as, you know, he's keeping pace with me, and he's wearing like speed cross shoes. And I was like so impressed that this guy's running like 7-minute mile pace in gnarly burly trail shoes.
right.
And thanks to him, like you know, he helped pull me through. But yeah, I did split those. And looking back on it, it wasn't a smart decision, but um it was a motivating moment for me, because it showed that like I could switch that gear in my mind if I needed to.
Mm,
um you know, this run, I'm wearing my like kind of wild spirit animal quarter zip. I mean, I one thing I want to talk about quick is that I felt like there's been remnants of this like almost like spiritual, like primal, like instinctual survival quality inside of me. I've had it in
mm,
different races where I've gone out too fast, and I've just somehow held on, or I felt like I was going to get injured, and I just somehow pulled it together. And Hellgate was I ran that last year, and that was a big eye opener,
mm,
fighting off hyperthermia and ice and freezing rain and all this crazy stuff. And um, you know, I just focused on being a survivalist. Like
mm,
no matter what, I was going to survive, whatever the circumstances were. And that's how this run was. That was my mentality. Um, and I mean, that's why I was running 7-minute miles, because I felt like no matter what, I'm just gonna do what I like to do. I love to run, and whatever pace that was, that's what I was going to do.
That's awesome. All right. So there you have it, James. It is true. There was the 7-minute miles in there. We've got a question from Kaylin Hopkins. Kaylin has the FKT for the out and back of the New Jersey Appalachian Trail. She was on our Zoom a few weeks ago. So Kaylin's question.
She's the one that worked on my feet, and she's awesome. She was like a super crazy huge rock star. So
she is a rock star.
I'm glad that she's watching, because she was super pivotal. So props.
Awesome. Kaylin's the best. This is her question. What were the first 24 to 48 hours like after your run from a physical and mental perspective? In hindsight, would you have changed anything about your training? So we got 2 questions in there.
Yeah, I probably would have practiced more sleep deprivation running, I guess. Like that, had never been more exhausted before in my life. I mean, virtually the scenario is we stayed in Cape May. We finished. We got a really nice kind of like bed and breakfast hotel room. Me and my wife are like hobbling, like we're both falling asleep pretty much. Like we're delirious. Like we're trying to figure out how to get in there. My first thing I did was take a nice shower, but I could hardly even stay awake. Like she was virtually holding me up in the shower while I'm just about to nod off.
Oh my goodness.
Honestly, as soon as my head hit the pillow, like I was out, like completely. And that just goes to show like what this type of distance and this type of like running can do to you. Like it can really mess with you. Like you hear all these stories like Courtney Dauwalter talking about hallucinations and stuff. Like I didn't hallucinate, but that stuff is real. It is real, people, and it attacks you at the most inopportune times. Like it sneaks up on you. And I think if I had more preparation and understanding how my body might handle that, it would maybe be easier to cope with. But yeah, I mean, afterwards, I mean, I was a wreck. I mean, I reverted to being a toddler. I mean, virtually all I could do was eat, sleep, and poop.
Right.
That was it. And I took Epsom salt baths, and I did that virtually for a whole entire week. Like I mean, I could hardly even make sense of anything. Like someone would call me, I'm like, hey, what's going on? I don't know what's going on. Where am I? I mean, I've never been more wrecked from a run before in my life. And it's really just this week where I'm starting to feel like I have my energy back. So, but yeah, I mean, it felt like I got hit by a Mack truck.
Perfect. I was going to ask you about the hallucinations. I was curious about that, but you said you didn't have any over the course of the run?
No, I didn't have any, but that's where I was delirious though. So I thought that everyone was I thought Kurt was leading me the wrong way. I thought my family, like Ashley was like, you surpassed your fundraising goal. And I listened to like little things they were saying, and I was like, changing it in my mind. Like it was like the funniest thing. But I'm glad that I wasn't like mean or anything, but I was just like, guys, I'm like double taking. I'm like, no, I've been here before. This is like deja vu. The course goes over there. And then Kurt's like, no, it goes there. Follow me. You've been following me. And then I'm like, I look at him like he's got 3 heads. And I'm like, I've been following you for a while. Okay, yeah, you're right. I'm going to follow you. I'm going to follow you. It was the strangest thing. And then once I kind of came to, it was like coming off of this like high. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, everybody. Like, I really thought that I was going to be done in like 5 or 10 miles, but I still got like 20 more miles to go. Whoops. So yeah, crazy experience. That was crazy. It's so hard to describe it because my mind was in such a fog.
Right.
I mean, I was there, but I wasn't there. So yeah.
All right, this is a comment from Anthony Parga. He says, Cole, can I be your pacer for the next one? I make sure we put money in the bank.
Yeah, money in the bank. Yeah, so that's like, that was my phrase. Like, anytime that you're able to put it, run a split that was faster than my original goal split, I was like looking, I'm like, all right, like money in the bank. We're cashing the checks, right? Like you're giving yourself a little bit of a buffer.
Right.
And I knew in this run that I wanted to be close to that goal pace. And if I'm running 10 to 11 minute miles, which that's how things kind of happen for the most part, like I was like, well, it's still, my goal was like 12 and a half. So if I'm 11 and a half, well, that's a minute faster. So that's money in the bank, right?
Right.
So yeah, that was good influence. With the Bordentown, the whole Bordentown crew, they got to figure out my lingo. We go cha-ching, like every time we had a good mile split. It was fun. That was a great crew.
That's awesome. Um, I thought of a couple more questions. I'm going to throw these in. These are kind of quick ones. You said you had almost like a 25,000 calorie deficit. What's that look like to replenish after the race? What was the first thing you ate after the race or the run?
Oh man.
You remember?
Drank some water. I had some of this the pasta from oh, I'm sorry, Mike and Harry, Lovely Bones or something like that. Honestly, I was like falling asleep, so I was just stuffing some calories in. The next morning, um, we went to get coffee. Went to this really cool coffee place in Cape May and got a smoothie, and it was amazing. Like virtually, I got a large, like it was like a 34-ounce smoothie, and I just drank it all down in like a minute. It was like gone, and yeah, I just after that I was just eating anything. Like, I will say from the whole extent of this run, I suffered a slight muscle tear behind my leg, and who knows? The part of the story could be that I might have suffered it during the run, like 140 miles in, and I ran with it
Right.
for the rest of the distance. I don't know. The good thing is that I'm on the mend, and it's getting better each and every day, and my swelling is down and all that stuff. So I'll be back to normal and full health hopefully pretty soon. But yeah, I mean, 25,000 calories. I mean, I lost like 4 to 5 pounds, and I'm a
Wow.
pretty lightweight guy, so it
Right.
was pretty noticeable. And my body definitely was not used to that. And mind you, I was eating 400 calories an hour.
Yeah. Wow.
So I mean,
That's a lot of calories.
I was virtually on a 15,000 calorie deficit from this run. And so, I had experimented a little bit with like doing some like fast runs and like fat adaptation kind of stuff. And for fuel, I ate a ton of avocados. Like honestly, if I could pick one food and just like make all my food that, I think avocado was going to be the magic ticket.
That's
I
awesome.
craved like fatty, savory foods like you would not believe it. And they went down incredibly well. And it makes sense for this kind of longer run. I think your body really demands the fat stores. So, um, for those that want to do that kind of distance, like, maybe experiment with foods that are high in fat that are easily digestible. I'm telling you, avocados are like, they're the way to go. And I would start there and see if you notice any benefits or differences. Again, I'm still experimenting with it myself, so we'll see if it really does keep playing out as being a
Right.
good choice.
All right, so we got to get you the gummy bear sponsorship and the avocado sponsorship. It sounds like both of those guys.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I've got one final question for you. I think that is all we've got in the chat. So my final question, it's two-part. So what advice would you give to brand new trail runners who are listening to this and they're hearing you talk about running 197 miles? What would you say to them? And then what would you say to runners who are listening to this and the gears are starting to turn and they're like, I think I want to try a big, hairy, scary goal like this? What would you say to those two groups of people?
Yeah, I mean, I think distance is like distance is it's just a number. So I don't let that intimidate you. Saying, well, I've only run a marathon, 50 miles is double that. It's too far. It's not too far. You can do it. Like if you're smart, like it's all about the preparation, right? It's about being, the way I look at it is honing your craft, being a scholar, do the research. The internet is great for resources in terms of training tips and training plans and coaches. And I mean, race reports and, like read up on these stories. I mean, when I got this idea to do this New Jersey run, like I looked up like people that had run like the Moab 240 and like some of those events and tried to like look at what kind of paces they were doing. Obviously the terrain was way different, but I
Right.
wanted to kind of like understand like what that kind of would look like. I looked at similar FKTs in terms of distance, and I kind of tried to compare ideas, and I'm like, okay, within my level of fitness, maybe I could an A goal would probably fit around that 40-hour mark. I look back and I should have said maybe like I should have shot for under 2 days, because I hit 44 hours. But I'm glad that I went for it and set that lofty goal, because if that wasn't there in the back of my mind, I might have been more complacent later on.
Right.
So having that, knowing that I was right on, like, even in the later stages I was like on pace for like 42 hours, 41, 42, and then I took a little bit too long at a lot of our little aid station stops later on when I was
Right.
delirious. That cost me time, but I mean, I was knocking on the door, and that's the beauty of putting the carrot on the string. Like, if the carrot's not on the string, like, what are you don't have a benchmark to go for.
Mm.
So yeah, for the new trail runners, don't be intimidated. Like, running's fun. It's hard, but it's so rewarding, and you can achieve great things. Talk to people. There's great communities out there that full of people that have tons of great experiences that would love to share. And that's the thing, is that we're all very generous and fun, easygoing people. Like, we want to share our stories and experiences. So be a sponge, take that stuff in, and you can do it. For those that want to take on that lofty goal, I would maybe recommend doing what I did, which was, do some research about, that type of distance, and don't be intimidated by it either. I mean, you can definitely get through it. I mean, I got through it. Yes, it was incredibly challenging, incredibly hard, unlike anything I've ever experienced before, but I came out on top of it, um, a stronger person. And I know that you can too. It's a matter of, I think a lot of it's the mental framework. I was I did well in the fact that I was positive. Be
Mm.
positive. Like, you look at Courtney Dauwalter and she's smiling all the time. Well, that psychology says that that is good for the body. Like,
Right.
do that. Like, be happy, be positive. Running is supposed to be, again, transformative and empowering. Like, um, I used to be so worried about results, and just enjoying the ride, enjoying that experience. Like, it it allows you to just break things down into the simplest forms and really just like have a high level of gratitude for things, and it now allows you to achieve great things. I mean, that was my New Jersey run. I came into it saying, people would ask me, how many miles have I gone, and I said Cape May. um, like, it didn't matter to me how many miles I had already done. That was in the
Yeah.
past. My mind was focused straight ahead, like the light of a lighthouse guiding the way out into the ocean. Like, my
Awesome.
focus was on that point, right? um, Cape May was my end point, and I was going to get there no matter what.
Mm.
And um, if you want something in life, like, go for it, work for it, strive for it. Like, if you have that will, that determination, like, if you're a survivalist in life, like, you're gonna survive, you're gonna do it. And that's my motivational speech for everybody. It's like, that's what this run did for me. It opened my eyes to being like, I found this piece inside of me that I knew was there all along, and it's inside of all of us. And I think we can all, it takes a lot of hard work and ability to be able to pull it out of us, but it's there and we can do it. If I've done it, you can do it.
It's awesome, Cole. I love it. It's so great. Yeah, and I'll echo what one of the things you touched on is the power of community. And I encourage you, if you're listening to this and maybe not plugged into a community, start there. And Cole mentioned several different running groups in New Jersey. If you're local here, you can reach out to me. Of course, I'm biased for Sassquad trail running, but I recommend other running groups all the time. I'm connected to groups around the state and also in New York, PA. So reach out, get connected. And I think, what you've heard tonight is that there's a lot of power in community, and Cole had an army behind him. So, I mean, that was an unstoppable train that went from High Point to Cape May. That's what I heard this past hour.
Yeah. And I want to throw in a little nugget for everybody. All right. So, this is a goal of mine that I'm sure a lot of you probably have read about and know about, but there's another great pathway and trail through New Jersey, and it goes from east to west. It's called the Liberty Gap Trail. And
Yes. I am
I
so
want,
intrigued by Liberty Gap. Is it finished yet though? Or because I thought some of it wasn't finished.
I think it's officially finished now, but
Okay.
it's complicated because it links all other different types of like trail links, like the Patriots Path and the Lenape Trail and
Yeah.
all of these other different trail systems all across New Jersey. So logistically, it's a lot to take in.
Right.
But that's something that's on my radar. And, for anyone that, if someone wants to do it, I'd love to help pace and take in that experience. I mean, I think that trail is going to be something to write home about. Just that it links pretty much two kind of like monument or national recreation areas. So the
Right.
Water Gap on the west, and you got the Liberty, Liberty National or Liberty State Park,
Liberty State Park.
you know,
Yeah.
right by the Statue of Liberty. Like you take the ferry over. Like those are the 2 points, and I think that's another great story for another day. So that's something that's been on my radar. That I think I'd love for people to recon and start exploring that stuff, because that could be the next chapter in New Jersey ultra running.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. I found that trail a couple of years ago when I was on the Lenape Trail, just through the trail conference. It looks really awesome. It's like 100, isn't it? Pretty close to 100 miles, I think, from point to point.
It's 156,
Oh, it's longer than that.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a good distance. But it's pretty much all trail, right? So like, I
Right.
mean, you're gonna have some road connectors, but it's a much different type of animal.
Right.
And there hasn't really, I mean, there was like one guy that hiked it that I know of, but the story is, remains to be written. And I really hope that people go out there and carve out their own story with it, because I think it's going to be something that's going to be really empowering and magical for us.
I love it. That's great stuff. So listen, get your gummy bears, a group of friends, and start doing some trail research. It's awesome. Cole, thank you so much. You're so gracious with your time. And I don't know, I think you got to start doing some motivational speaking on the side. I think that, I mean, you really shared a lot of really great, encouraging things. I'd encourage you to, Cole, go back, watch the Facebook, because there's so many great comments in here and a lot of really nice stuff people were saying about you.
Well, thank you, Kim. Thank you, everybody. Go Beast Coast. Again, thank you to everyone watching, all the support. Like, I mean, I've just been so humbled by this whole experience. I mean, it's been totally incredible. And, my purpose now moving forward is I want to take this story and help inspire others and show that, limits are only what we set. And what others try to set on us, it's like being in a cage. Like, we can live a life uncaged, and it's the most beautiful thing. And I've found it, and I want other people to experience that. So that's become my new kind of message in all my ultra running now. It's the turning point. I've become a new Cole, I guess.
It's awesome. It's so great. Well, thank you, Cole, again so much for sharing your story and your time with us. If you're listening to this, maybe you came in the middle of it. The replay will be on Facebook. You can catch it on our Facebook page. And then early next week, we're going to load it onto our Sassquad Trail Runners podcast, which is on Apple, Google Play, Spotify, wherever your favorite podcasts are streaming. And if you're listening, you can't see right now, but Cole is breaking it down. He's got some dance moves on the side here. So thank you guys again so much. Learn more about Sassquad Trail Running. You can catch us on Facebook, Instagram, or on our website, sassquadtrailrunning.com. So until we see you again, keep it squatchy.